She is a candidate for the state uh,
Superintendent.
superintendent of the
Yeah.
state of Wisconsin. Good morning to you, Miss Kinser. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty well. I'm getting over I have a cold, but I'm
Oh,
doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
All right, so let's have at it because we only have a few minutes with you. Tell us a little bit about
Okay.
Brittany Kinser.
All right. So my name is Brittany Kinser. I'm running for state superintendent of public instruction. I have been an educator for 25 years. Can't believe it's been 25 years. I was a special ed teacher for 10 years in Chicago Public Schools. And I was in the classroom, and then I also I worked at the district level for a few years. Then I spent another 10 years working in the public charter school space as an award-winning principal here in Wisconsin and other leadership positions also. Sometimes I think people forget that charter schools are public, so I want to make sure that I say that they're public. And then I worked as a CEO at a nonprofit here in Milwaukee, and now I'm running a reading initiative called the 95 Wisconsin. 95 Wisconsin stands for the fact that we know that 95% of children can learn how to read well enough to go to college or have a career if we make sure we're using the science of reading and teaching phonics in the early grades. And so my initiative is working with schools here in Milwaukee to make sure students are getting the one-on-one tutoring that's proven to catch them up if they're behind. And then making sure teachers have the support they need to teach phonics in the early grades, and the school leaders also, so that we don't need as many kids needing tutoring. So that is who I am. I got in this race because I believe that 95% of our children can learn how to read well enough, and need to restore our high standards and refocus on teaching reading, writing, and math, so all our kids can have a meaningful job, go to college, or master a trade.
So I have to so
That's a little bit about me.
I have to ask you because um, you know
Sorry.
we knew historically that phonics worked, but I don't know, 30
hmm
years or so ago, people made a decision to get away
Yes.
from phonics. And so
Yes.
when we talk about what has happened, and the public school system is blamed for children not knowing how to read, it really is, you know, when people explore the realities of why. There are many different reasons. I spent 12 years volunteering in Milwaukee Public Schools, so I kind of know
Oh,
what I'm
good.
talking about. And
Yes.
it's the fact that they decided to move away from phonics. Why was that?
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. So about 30 years ago, the whole education system decided to move away from it and go to something called balanced literacy. And if anyone hasn't listened to the podcast, I don't know if you've listened to Soul the Story. She does a fantastic job of outlining the history of what happened. But you can see what happened as soon as we stopped teaching phonics. Our reading results just go downhill. And now we have this reading crisis in our country where in Wisconsin, we only have 3 out of 10 children who are reading well enough to go to college or have a career. And in Milwaukee, like you said, you were in Milwaukee, we have the worst results out of any city in the country. Only 5% of our Black children are reading well enough. Overall, only 9%. And so, it took way too long for us to get back to teaching phonics. But we could even see that at the school I taught at, or I opened. We taught our teachers how to teach phonics, and we had fantastic results in our first 2 years. And then again, the schools got away from it because everyone was doing this balanced literacy. But thank goodness we're back to teaching phonics again because we know it works. Really, Earl, we know like 30% of people don't need phonics, and that shows that in the data, but the rest of us do. And some of us even need small group intervention, even after we've gotten phonics in the whole group, class, and then some of us need one-on-one.
So,
But we know that it works.
so let
So,
me so let
I'm
me let
sorry.
me
Very
ask you.
passionate about
So let me ask
it.
you because, as somebody who's lived in this city in Milwaukee for 70 years, had my
Yeah.
children go to Milwaukee Public Schools. We saw what took place. Then why was the school district, Milwaukee Public Schools, blamed for the fact that children couldn't read? I heard you just state that 3 out of 10 across the state
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
trouble reading. Why is it that we just see the focus on Milwaukee Public Schools?
Well, only 3 out of 10 can. It's 7 out of 10 are the ones that are not. Like, so only
Right.
3 out of 10 are reading. So, like, sometimes people are like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I should say it differently. Oh, 7 out of 10 can't. But in Milwaukee, it's even worse. It's worse. And so we should have been able to switch to phonics as soon as we saw that dip, right? Like we should have been, because we can see the data every year, and students and teachers see it too, right? But
Yeah.
teachers also are going to school, Earl. I went to a teacher's college, 25 years ago. I was a special ed major, and I realized when I got out of school, oh my gosh, I don't know how to teach reading. Just because I know how to read doesn't mean you know how to teach it. There is a science to it. And so I had to take classes on how to teach phonics. I had to go back and get training on how to teach it. And I thankfully I was taught how to read through phonics. And so we need to make sure that our teacher programs are teaching our teachers. Every teacher, when they go into teaching, they want to help. Teachers want to help students. That's why you go into it. So we need to make sure that our teacher colleges are teaching teachers how to teach using phonics. But if they haven't, then the school districts and DPI need to make sure that we are training our teachers on how to teach phonics. And that's really how I learned.
So let me ask you, because politics played a role in this, and the fact that, after decades of trying to get them back, the people who made that decision on board, and I know why the decision was made. Clearly, it was about money and about somebody padding their pockets, and so we live at a time in the society where children cast aside, and so when you look at Milwaukee Public Schools, the largest district in the entire state, what are your thoughts about the public school system as opposed to private and choice schools?
So, yes. So I started 95 Wisconsin to actually spread it throughout Wisconsin. The one-on-one tutoring we know works, and then also making sure I'm using a research-based phonics curriculum called UFLI. Everyone can look it up. UFLI. It is affordable. There's free training. It's out of the University of Florida. Dr. Holly Lane is brilliant, and she wants to make it affordable for everyone. So I started this program so that we could spread it throughout Wisconsin. I did approach Milwaukee Public Schools. It didn't end up happening. I haven't yet been able to get into the schools there, but I did approach them right away to see if I could work with them, because we do have half of our students in the city going to Milwaukee Public Schools. We have to help our teachers there and our students and families. When we see the results and we see everything that's going on, we have to come together. This is a reading crisis, right? Like, we have to get in and help our students. And we are focused on Milwaukee, but I've traveled throughout the state, Earl, and everywhere I go, families are concerned that their children are not learning how to read. Grandparents, the bank I was at, where I bank here in Wauwatosa, the teller has been there for 25 years. And I said, I'm running for state superintendent. And I got into it because we only have 3 out of 10 children reading well enough. And she stopped me, Earl. She said, oh, Brittany, you don't have to tell me. She's like, I've been doing this job for 25 years, and every year it gets worse. I'm now reading people their bank statements because they can't, and they don't know how to read the directions. She's like, I'm actually having to help them write out their banking information. And so we're seeing this across our country. The real enemy, and this is why I'm in this, is to make sure the enemy is illiteracy for our country. So we have to make sure that more kids are reading.
So you are running for state superintendent, and there has certainly been constant conversation about your opponent and her failure. And she's been blamed because the students and the children can't read. But I hear you saying teachers didn't know how to teach reading. So if that's at the root of it, and there are a lot of different reasons why. I know when you look at the conditions that exist with parents and children who are transient in Milwaukee Public Schools, who don't know where they're going to be living from day to day, who are hungry, and the socioeconomic realities of what children and families face in the city of Milwaukee. Not only is Milwaukee one of the worst places for children to read, it's one of the worst places in the entire nation for Black people to live. And so there is a correlation between both. And so can you fix the issue with education if you don't fix the social economic issues that persist in the city of Milwaukee for Black people in general?
So we have to we know great schools build great communities. And I will take ownership and work with our local leaders, the legislature, the governor, to ensure that we are supporting Milwaukee Public Schools and schools across.
Well, that hasn't been happening.
And I promise you, I will do that. I already have relationships.
So let me ask you something. What would be different with you? Why would they listen to you and not anybody else? The legislature.
Well, I will. I've already have those relationships. I have worked already on a bill that was bipartisan. It was the Republicans, 5 Democrats from Milwaukee, and the governor's office that passed a bill to increase education spending for all children in the state. Mental health.
Can I get you to hang on a second?
Sure.
All right. My guest is Ms. Brittany Kinser. She is a candidate for the state superintendent of schools. 855-752-4840. I don't know why I'm having that block. Maybe I forgot my phonics. I need to take a phonics sandwich. 855-752-4842. A Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. My guest is Ms. Brittany Kinser, and she is a candidate for the state superintendent position.
Not Supreme Court.
Yeah. So let me ask you, because you said you have a relationship with the legislature. The legislature has been part and parcel why systems across this state have not been receiving their fair share. So what's different about your approach to the legislature than anyone else that they've now decided to do the right thing? They chose to do the wrong thing all those decades. Why now and why you?
I've shown in the past that I've been able to work with them with the bill 2 years ago. And, I want to use, Mayor Johnson and County Executive Crowley as an example. Okay, so I watched those 2 Milwaukee leaders work across the aisle. They attended meetings with Republican legislators, and Governor Evers and all the other stakeholders, cities, counties, villages, and towns across the state. And they modernized the shared revenue formula that hadn't been changed for decades. And I think they are a great example of how they worked across the aisle. They worked so hard, and they, worked to find common ground. And so there's an example of what can happen. And as they were doing that, I was there also, like, watching on the education side, and I will continue for our children. It is imperative that we have relationships across the aisle because our kids are relying on adults. I think about the little 4-year-olds that come into school every year and they're like, "Hi, I'm here, teacher, I'm here," right? And I'm here, school leaders, and they are relying on us to get along and to find common ground for them because they deserve it. And so when I see that, our Milwaukee leaders were able to do it, that's an example. I can also do that. And like I said, I have the relationships, and I have those relationships. I built them because I know that our kids are relying on us. And so I'm going to continue with that.
So what comes first, the teachers' unions or the children? Do you support teachers' unions? Because there is a correlation between what happens in education.
I support our children first and foremost, and I hope that everyone in education supports our children first. And we have to start coming from a place of what is best for our children. And of course, I will talk to anyone at the unions. We all have to talk. I know a couple of years ago when I was at the Joint Finance Committee meetings, I was talking with people who were in the unions there, and we were talking about how it's important to work, everyone has to work together. We have got to put politics aside, Earl, for our children. And I promise you
But we
that.
haven't been
You
able
want
to.
to go back?
We haven't been able to do
Sorry.
it. We haven't been able to do it. I mean, I've watched this over the last 40 years. We haven't been able to put politics aside.
And I think that, like I said, Mayor Johnson and County Executive Crowley showed us how to do it. And it was just recent, right, on how to work together across the aisle. And I believe when we bring parents into the fold, too, informing parents on the issues, I think we can do that. I promise. And I have been, been able to do that. I think even, when you had said something about blaming Dr. Underly about the results. What I want to make sure is that Dr. Underly lowered the standards to make it. This is why I got into the race, to lower the standards, which covers up the reality of where our children are at, and that would be my number one job, is to make sure we raise the high standards and make sure that we are focusing on teaching our children how to read, write, and do math so they can get a job or go to college or master a trade. And part of that is we have to support our teachers. And I know the teachers union is interested in teaching, supporting the teachers. And I've been in a teachers union. I was in the Chicago Public Schools teachers union for 10 years when I first got out. So I will give it all of my effort to work together with everyone to be able to do what's best for our kids. Like, I recently just got the endorsement for the Democrats for education reform on the same day that Governor Thompson endorsed me. So I'm able to work with both sides.
So let me do
It's
this.
hard to say, like,
Because we don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time. You want to take a caller quickly? Do you want to take a caller?
Take a caller? I don't know. I've never done this before.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see. Eric. Hey, good morning to you, Eric. You have a question or comment for Ms. Kinser?
Good morning, Earl. Good morning, Ms. Kinser. Recently, Ms. Kinser, I attended a Brad Schimmel fundraiser, and the Moms for Liberty were there. The John Birch Society was there. Turning Point was there, which is Elon Musk's funding machine in Wisconsin here. And I saw your yard signs and your literature there with the Brad Schimmel literature and yard signs. And so I have to ask, do your values align with Brad Schimmel and Moms for Liberty? And also, as superintendent, will you seek increases in voucher funding across the state? And you didn't say when Mr. Ingram asked you whether you support the teachers union, you said you'll talk to the unions. And I'd like to know whether you will support the unions, because the unions support
Eric,
the teachers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Eric. I wish we had more time. You want to respond to any of those things, Ms. Kinser?
So, like I said, I will work with anyone who wants to put our children first. And I think that is the problem, where we are like, these people are this and these people are this, and then we don't talk to each other. We have all got to talk to each other. Like I said, when I was a principal, I had to work with every family, right? Whether they were Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever it was. I never asked them. We all have to work together for our kids.
Hey.
And if we start talking about what's best for kids, not one person, Earl, whether it's been up north, down south, wherever, everyone agrees that all children should read. That is the key to freedom. Right?
Hey, Ms. Kinser, good luck. Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
All right, 855-752-4842. You're tuned into a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show.